I think what was really tough was leaving an industry that I've been just doing hair and makeup for about 20 years, like I can do it in my sleep, and the beauty industry was like home to me. So it's like stepping out of that and stepping into something that I was doing for my business and I was doing great. Stepping into something new was scary. Like I would be lying if I didn't tell you to this day I still have moments where I cry and I'm like, imposter syndrome. Like I had a week where I just onboarded 3 clients and I started to like fill the goals that I didn't even want to like fill until like next year. And it's going very good. And it's like, it's something that, and I go to therapy a lot. That really helps a lot. And I even like spoke to my therapist about it and I was like, I'm doing great. And I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just, and it's imposter syndrome. That is like one of the biggest things that a lot of Black women also, mostly Black women, deal with. And I even spoke about that as well. But one of the things that I do is I lean on friends, I lean on my community, I lean on my resume to say like, girl, why
build yourself up, you got to.
Yeah, and and then I have moments where I look at, reviews that my clients have given me. I look at moments that, so there's a lot of different things that I do to try to keep me on track and to keep me like saying like, okay, I'm doing this for a good reason. But a lot of the times like that is the toughest part because, it's really hard to really sit there and say, okay, I'm really proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself because, I'm the first person in my family that is on a creative thing. Like it was like, I'm stepping out.
And not just that, you're successful at it.
Yeah. And I still have a hard time hearing that. Like you're saying it and I'm like, am I successful at it?
Yeah.
Well, like it's
like this goal that we put in our minds, but then you accomplish your goal and then you're like, well, that's not really success. You undermine your own goal of what it means to be successful.
Well, then too, a lot of us equate success to money. And it's not necessarily like, yes, okay, yeah, when you're making a certain amount of money, that's you being successful. But there's so many different things. Like one day I really had to look back and it's so crazy because I forget about all the things that I've done because like, I'm like, whatever, it's done, but looking back and I'm like, I did a lot. Like, I'm like right now, some of my work is on a building in Soho, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, why can't I sit there and just say, Charde, that's really great, but it's a work in process. And I think what the first thing that I'm working on is not being so hard on myself. And I think it's baby steps. You have to start where, it's like, if it's one little thing that you do, then so one of the things that I said that I'm going to do is like, I'm celebrating my wins a little bit more. Like I'm not going to forget
all of
about
them,
it.
like the small ones too. And that's one thing that I tell the clients that I work with is like, we get so wrapped up in our larger goals that we forget, like if you build a project plan, there are a bunch of steps along the way. There may be like key milestones, but there's a bunch of steps. Celebrate everything that you knock off of that to-do list. Like that is like a badass moment.
It's crazy. I'm like, I built like when I did my branding class, I'm like, I was so scared. I'm like, I'm meditating all day. Like, please let me get this. So scared. And then like I sent my cousin is starting a brand and I just sent her the class. I was like, just join the class because I need like a familiar face. And it was the first time me doing a live Zoom class like this. And literally in the middle of it, she's like texting me like, oh my God, this is amazing, Charde. And I'm just like, and it's just one of those things where you have to give yourself a lot more credit than like, even if you do give yourself a little, like always add on like a little bit more because you're always giving yourself like the bare minimum of like, I did this. And I look back and I'm like, I'm looking at now I'm going through like all of the branding that I've come up with, all the things that I've done. And I'm like, this is amazing. And sometimes I do like, I'll be writing something. I'm like, Charde, that's so good. Like, I'll just my little moment. Like, this is so good, and I'm learning. So it's a learning process. It's a learning, you have to unlearn all of that because like, and I said too, like a lot of us, and I wrote something on imposter syndrome as well. And I said, you know, Black women deal with it a lot more because like we're the only people that people deal with imposter syndrome, but Black women are the only people that deal with imposter syndrome, but also have the world telling us that we're not, that we're not great also. You know what I mean? So
we're ingrained to believe in that. Like, it's not just, oh, it's imposter syndrome. It's like, this is a well-founded belief. It's more than just, it's a well-founded belief, and not that there's any validity behind that belief, but it's well-founded because it's what you've been told since day one. And it's that cycle that perpetuates generations and beyond.
Being a Black woman, and it's just like, you know, even like with your success, like, you know, we're taught to not flaunt our success because, you know, you don't want to, like, you want to still get married, you want to make sure
you want to still get married, you have, you know, jealous people in your circle that you realize, oh wait, these people just aren't my friends if I can't talk about an accomplishment. Saying that I did this and being proud of it is not bragging. And we're told you still want to get married. We're told that, oh, that ain't nothing. Or like, you're told so many different things. Or people, you know, you go over to your cousin in them house and they're telling you why you still like X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
oh, well, why don't you just do this? Or why don't you just get a job? Like, that was the biggest thing. And it's like, well, I have a job.
Yeah, like
I do all day, every day.
Yeah. And I think one of the really helpful things, in addition to just speaking light into yourself from whatever source you can, is also taking a step back and being a bystander in the situation that you're currently in, because that brings so much light to the situation. Because one of the things that I noticed is that when you're talking to negative people, and negative people can be yourself. We say negative things to ourselves all the time. But when you're talking to another person, usually it's projection of the stuff that they cannot do, the stuff that they wish that they had done, or the stuff that you're doing that they're a little bit jealous of. So now they're going to say whatever they will about it. And sometimes it's easier to identify because they'll just dismiss it and you recognize it as jealousy. But sometimes it's covert. Like, it's one of those comments like, oh, I don't have the privilege to do X, Y, and Z. And so you're thinking that your accomplishments with AAA Consulting or with Fireside Insights, whatever, are, oh, it's a privilege. No, I worked my ass off. It's
like I worked my ass off for this.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it doesn't
own
make
that.
it